Got no clapper, do we?
Okay.
We are Football in Focus from Teed Up Indoors on Battleground, home with Davis Troxler, the best golfing teacher, instructor, and golfer in the world. Davis Troxler here at Teed Up Indoors. Good to have you along with us on this Thursday evening. Bryant Roche is with us once again from the News and Record, talking about the games from last week. Only had 3 Guilford County teams playing last week, so we look at some games, and the bad thing about those 3 teams that played last week, everybody lost. So let's start with Eastern Guilford. 17-7, they got beat by Western Alamance. Eastern Guilford still lacking in some areas, but what are those areas right now?
I think to start off with, maybe one of the things that I've noticed on film and just looking a little bit, Eastern Guilford has had a reputation over the years for having a very strong offensive line. I think this year they might not quite be as good up front as they've been in years past. They're still trying to find ways to run the football effectively, and I think they're not quite running the ball as they would have liked. They have a young quarterback that's just getting in the groove.
What is he, a sophomore?
Only a sophomore, but his first year starting. He's thrown 2 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions in the grand scheme of things isn't terrible, but they're not scoring at the rate that they would like. I think I attribute that to an extent to a running game that isn't quite as good as they'd probably hope.
And the weird thing is, you bring up some good points. I like these points because you do this all in one thing. We look at our visual of our scheme of these media guys or these people that follow teams saying, well, gosh, Stephen Murray's not doing as much. I mean, the running back, he's not doing it. But like you said, it kind of goes, it's not that they're not as good as they were last year. The fact is, a difference in offensive line, like you said, can make a big difference because Creech has not even got 300 yards yet, and Murray's, trying to get his numbers up, but, it's hard to do it out that offensive line.
I think, sometimes it is interesting trying to think of the scientific term, but sometimes those certain things have indirect effects on other things, and I don't think that Stephen Murray all of a sudden isn't as good as Stephen Murray was last year,
Right.
But I do think that some of those surrounding circumstances are having broader effects there.
You brought up a big thing too, and I'll use a term. It's kind of it's big in a lot of ways. It's almost magnanimous. Heard that from Mr. Kimmel last night on Green Acres. That was a term Mr. Kimmel was using his description of what was going on with Mr. Douglas and the problems on the farm. I thought I'd use that term a few times, magnanimous. But with the same relationship as some ways the Dudley situation, because the numbers there aren't the same this year. And it's not that these guys, like Cordell Bartley and the guys like C.J. Neely and Sir Newkirk and Antonio Lee and then the running backs, those guys, it's not that, but you mentioned a good thing. The point was Dudley's had such a better start position, field position-wise this year. They had to go as far to get the touchdowns. So there's reasons why these big numbers, it's not like, what happened to such and such? Well, remember, the game's a little different this year, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for Dudley's sake, when you have a situation where the other teams are 3 and out, tackle for loss, sack, etc., turning the ball over, you get the ball in a good spot. I mean, your offense just naturally isn't going to, get the same kind of yardage output. And also factor in they've had running clock games.
Oh, yeah.
And so the running clock games are also going to, affect that because you're not going to have the same possession timeline in the second half especially. And so I think Dudley is just fine. They just, those types of things are just looking a little weird right now. Yeah.
You bring up another word you use there too. I like that word you use because it all goes back to one thing, the good old timeline. It's all about the timeline. Because I was at the game yesterday, the middle school game between Coronado and Northwest Guilford, which Northwest won in a pretty big blowout fashion. But the big question, I asked the official at halftime, I said, the big question is, what is the running clock total for the middle school have to have? It was 24-0 half, so it was 28-0. So okay, we'll see that probably in the first play or so. So the running clock did take effect there too. But that's all, like you say, the running clock goes back to another thing you just said earlier. The timeline is key here. And like Mr. Kimmel said last night, everything just grows into a big ball. It's like magnanimous as it comes down. So Eastern Guilford, what do they got this week? I was going to come to this later. Let's go and go to it now since kind of join them all together. It was about Eastern Guilford now, what they needed to do to get going. They got a game this week against Northeast Guilford. What do they have to do to win this week? Because I think they're at home against Northeast. And Northeast is not bad. They've put up some good offensive totals. Defense is a little bit lax in some areas off and on. But Northeast is 1-2. Eastern's 0-3. To me, that's kind of an intriguing game. I always like those games because I know both these teams have some talent. So this week, Eastern's at home. to get in that win column. This is a conference game also too. They could be 1-0 in the conference. Forget about the overall record. Throw it away right after that. Book out the window. Eastern Guilford wins this week. What has to happen?
I think one of the things that I am intrigued about with this game, Eastern, like we said, had to play last week. Northeast has a new coach, got a bye, so I'm kind of intrigued how that bye serves Northeast because they knew that this team was coming ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, another thing too,
all that.
Jumping your timeline again. Another wild thing is I think Northeast was coming off a win, also the first win of the year, correct? Didn't they win that last game, Northeast? They get their first win in the most previous game before the bye.
They did, yeah.
That's
yep,
the
they
key
did.
because
Momentum.
Man, I want. If I just won, let's play Saturday if we can. Let's get a game for Saturday. Let's play as quick as we can. But like I said, they got the bye week, so that kind of quells.
Yeah.
The old Mr. Kimmel doesn't use the word, but it kind of quells the old head of steam you build up.
Yep, that is correct. So they would have lost, a tight one to Ragsdale, a tight one to Western before that. And so, yeah, you're right. What does the bye week do? Does it? And I guess I didn't answer your question directly there. Mm-hmm. I think for Northeast, what they want to do, obviously they have a great secondary. If they can stop that run from Eastern, I think that puts Eastern in a little bit of a bind. And then on the other side of things, from an offensive standpoint, they've had moments, but can they put it all together? They have some playmakers I like, but, can they put it all together on offense against Eastern, who defensively actually is looking pretty good? I know they're 0-3 right now, but their defense actually hasn't been much of an issue. Northern gave them a little bit of trouble, but I think overall their defense hasn't been too bad.
And you think about it, too, I saw the game last year, Northeast and Eastern at Northeast, and I knew it felt like it was going to be a good game. It turned out to be a pretty good game, but it was just a matter of time last year. Eastern was so strong with Jackson Jones still at quarterback, made a big difference, and had the other guy, was a Hezekiah Newby, had another running back there, too, which made them even tougher. But, last year it was a well-fought game over at Northeast with Eastern Guilford. Those two teams are just pretty close geographically, too, not far apart. So it'll be a big game there tomorrow night at Eastern Guilford at the Tommy Grayson Stadium. Mr. Grayson, former coach there, now deceased. But Smith went to Thomasville, Golden Eagles, came back losers, first loss of the season, 13-8. So what happened here? You were there.
I was there. There you go. I would say this was a defensive struggle. Both teams, honestly, had trouble getting it going offensively. Smith manufactured some points off of safety, and then they also scored a touchdown following a fumble recovery they had. And I put this in my column the next day. The touchdown drive they had was on 2 plays, 5 wide, empty. And I think this team is better served when they're running on empty. I like to use a little pop culture reference there too, but I like how they look running out of empty. I do know that they do have to mix in some running game with, their one-back sets, but I did like the spread look, and I know that Monty likes those screens too.
See, I always like to jump in the middle. I'm like the old boxer. You guys hit me pretty hard. Let's get you a few punches in here.
Oh, I probably talk too much too.
No. You know what I like to do? I always like to pop in. Here I am. What about this quarterback from Smith? Is he the real deal? I can't give you his last name because it's not written in front. I could try to pronounce it. It was in front of me. But this kid from Smith, the new quarterback, I guess he's a junior maybe. Is he the real deal? Is he making Smith a better team this year?
I think so. He gives them a running option. He can spread it out. Like I said, I do like when they're in those spread formations because it gives the defense thoughts about, well, is this kid a running threat or is he going to toss it around? And so that's why I think they're at their best when they are spreading things out, when they give him the potential to run. And, Monty, he likes basically his screen game. His screen game might be his best running game.
Kind of a bubble screen.
Being honest, his screen game might be his best running game. Bubble screens, a little bit of tunnel action.
The only screen I don't like, since you're a screen man, the only screen I don't like is, I tell you what, that middle screen to me is a very dangerous screen, no matter who runs that. The Redskins use the middle screen. I didn't like when they ran it. But God, excuse me, now the Commanders, now we're the Redskins. Anyway,
Washington, whoever.
Be correct here.
I guess.
Anyway, but the middle screen always worried me a bunch. If you pull it off, it's great because it's almost like a draw play in some ways with a catch. But man, the middle is usually crowded in there. But like you say, Coach Lash has got these guys doing some things, and it's gonna be interesting to see how this new quarterback for them does.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Time will tell. I think they are a better football team than they were last year. I think maybe Thomasville may have been a little bit of a wake-up call to an extent. I think early on in the schedule, I'm not sure that they were truly tested with upper-tier competition.
It's always good to
know,
get those wins. You should win. Get those early wins. Get a few wins
but they
under your
did,
belt.
yeah, they did beat who they should have beaten. Time will tell when it gets to the meat of their conference schedule. They play Atkins this week, which I think is good. I think they are 0-3, but I tell you what, Atkins, don't be too deceived by that record. I think Atkins is better than the record indicates. They've got a really good defensive end. Garrison Dibble, he's committed to Navy, and he's had a monster year so far. He's got over 50 tackles, 8 sacks. Like I said, committed to Navy. He is a good ball player. I think they've got a better football team, they think, and I think this game against Smith is going to be closer than the experts think as well.
And that game is at Atkins or at Smith? Looking at our schedule here.
I got to check on that.
We'll check on that.
I got to check on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but I think it's at, let's see, probably at Smith, you think, because the old rotating, we're on the road last week, should be home this week, that type thing, works often. How about this game, High Point Andrews and Norfolk Rowan? You weren't, I was there. Cavaliers, Norfolk Rowan come in, they were like 1-2 coming in. They looked like a 1-2 team to me. They led 27-0 at the end of the first quarter, and the game as a whole, I saw 971 yards of total offense. Final score was 55, 36, 91. I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. It's crazy. I mean, watching it go was like good night in the morning. And plus, Andrews was down by like 2 touchdowns near halftime. And they kick off to North Rowan. And the kid started it from Andrews, rips the ball off on the kickoff, strips it, runs back down the field to the 4-yard line. They almost got a touchdown right before half. Andrews was just like, it was a crazy game. I mean, I've got those 2 sheets of paper. I think I'm glad I brought 2 because I'm writing the totals down, that touchdown tally for the recap. Man, it took all of those sheets of paper for sure, and a couple of corners on the paper too. But that was just a wild game. 971 yards of total offense. Ooh.
Well, I'll tell you, if it's a crazy game for you, I know you've seen a game or two.
Yeah.
It must have been.
I hadn't seen one quite like that before. I said, gosh, I don't see these very often. This thing was really, close to 1,000 yards of total offense. Thinking, I've seen some blowouts and I've seen some games get a little close, but I haven't seen one just that kind of character that game had. It's almost like Mr. Kimmel said, this game was almost magnanimous in its nature. Of course, I think Andrews is a team that could do well, not against Reedsville probably, but against the other teams in that conference, they should do pretty well. They've got some athletes, yeah.
I think this will be an interesting stretch. This week they play West Stokes, and I know the 2 of us before the season started, we had them 2-3 in this conference. They play West Stokes this week. That defense will be tested. West Stokes runs some gadget plays, some different looks. I've seen some end arounds on tape through their that spread formation. They also play Walkertown here soon, which is a better team this year under Trip Honeycutt, a new coach. So this is going to be an interesting stretch for Andrews, really a tell-all. Andrews, they've got a couple guys that are big play waiting to happen. Janeel Harris, I know you followed him during the track season. Mm-hmm. He's averaging 22 yards per catch right now, a speedster on that track team that was running, 10-3 speed on the 100. So he can run, and they've got a good running game as well. So they're an exciting football team. If they fix up that defense a little bit, like you said, I do believe they're on that upper tier of that conference.
Got a kid named Kenny Young Jr. on defense. Another guy, I think his first name is Trey Organis. I mean, that's the name.
Defensive end.
You don't see it very often. Organis. This guy's Organis. I mean, this guy's a strange origin. This guy's really tough. But you got Darian Avery running back. They got 2 very good running backs. Good quarterback runs the ball. The whole team does pretty well things. But I want to see what Andrews does because that game last week was really off the charts, I might say. This week we've got Northwest at Western Guilford. Both teams 3-0. First time Western's been 3-0. I think it's like 17 years. Last big game I remember at Western Guilford years ago was back about 2000 and maybe about 2010. It's been about 20-some years ago. Myself and Jim Modlin there that night. Jim, now deceased, God rest his soul, from a Ragsdale Tiger, great basketball player at ECU, did a heck of a job back in the day, helped to broadcast those games. It was Western versus Ragsdale, a big game for Western. Playing against Cal, we talked about last week, trying to remember his name. Tony Baker was in that game for Ragsdale.
The touchdown maker.
That's him. And we're thinking about that. And Western played Ragsdale that night, and it's like Ryan Stell was the quarterback for Western, Coach Stell, the baseball coach's son. And they didn't give Western much of a chance, but it was a big game, and Western beat those guys. So I'm just wondering, what do you think about Western knocking off Northwest this week?
Well, here's a little bit of history for you. So Western is 3-0 for the first time since 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Here's your trivia question.
Okay.
When was the last time that Western beat Northwest Guilford?
I'm going to say probably it's been back when Coach Causey was coaching. I'm going to say maybe 2000, and I'm going to go for 2010.
It was 2007.
Hey, that's not bad.
That same year.
Not bad.
The same year.
Yeah.
So maybe Western has a good omen here.
Wow,
The last
17 years,
time that
3-0.
they beat Northwestern
That's a long
was
time.
2007, folks.
Man, that was a long time ago. Gosh, I remember when we played them back in the day, and I shouldn't probably bring these things up, just like going back to reminiscing too much, but I mean, it wasn't did you beat them, it was how much you beat them by. Here's one of my most interesting Northwest. I shouldn't. This is like going to the kids' football. Little kids. My most memorable game against Northwest was I was on the junior high team. We were out there playing these guys, and I think they were not that good. Anyway, I think the score was like 28-0. Like maybe in the fourth quarter, third quarter. Anyway, Northwest breaks off a kind of big. He's running fast. This guy's coming for the end zone, and he got past the defensive line, got the linebacker. I was line. Got past those guys, and I'm thinking, and the defensive backs. Nobody tried to tackle. I said, what the heck's going on, man? Nobody's going to try to. I said, I ran that guy down and dragged it down and saved the shutout. I said, nobody moved. They just watched the guy run down the field. I said, we got to stop this joker. We can't give up this shutout. So that's my big memory from that. And there's some others too. I'll never forget that day. You're standing on the middle school football field. You're just standing there. Play gets by. You're thinking, well, they'll get him. No, they'll bring him down. We got a shutout. There goes somebody's good. Nobody went after him. I said, I'll chase him. I ran that sucker down that day. Caught that. Anyway, this week, Western's got the running game, but I don't think they got the passing game.
We'll see what happens.
I hope they're not forced to pass.
They're high on Caleb Moore. They like him. They think he's improved.
He runs well.
You mentioned Timothy Baker. He is their bell cow now. The touchdowns, if you look at the stats, the touchdowns are actually pretty evenly distributed. He's got 3 on the season. I don't know if that's going to maybe teeter a little bit as this season goes on. But right now, Baker, although he is the main cog, he's not the only guy scoring for him. I think that might be interesting to see.
Scheming wise, what I'd do is this. I'd be thinking, gosh, we got to think this thing over. They're going to be keying on Baker. They're going to be all over him. I think it's whatever his number is, maybe number 3, but that number, you got to have that guy's number. They're focused on him. They're trying to get him. But the other guy, Hayes, let's gear it toward Hayes a little bit. Let's sneak it in. Let's fake it to Baker, give it to Hayes, let Hayes run. We got to do a little bit with Hayes, and we'll come back to Baker later when they forget about it. But you can't give it all to Timothy because Northwest is thinking, I know Timothy Baker. I'm going to kill Timothy Baker. We got to get Timothy Baker. So once they slow him down some, Hayes has got to help out. Moore can be a big help. He can help on the legs too.
And keep in mind, Chris Rusevich, his calling card is defense. And so far this season, I think he's done one of the best coaching jobs in this area because the defense has been strong, and consider the offensive parts that he lost last year between Tanner Ballou, Trenton Cloud, Malik Jones at running back. So he lost a bunch of parts from that offense, but this defense, who lost Ryan Debo to Grimsley, this defense, in my mind, has done an excellent job, and they've really done well so far. We'll see what happens. I think with Western, this is by far the toughest test that they will encounter up to this point anyway, I'll say. Not want people to think I'm crazy.
Right.
But up to this point, the toughest test that they've faced, and we'll see just how good they are. Are they the real deal? But the Hornets, I'm just telling you, people are excited on the west side.
They're excited on that side of the fence, no doubt about that side of the field. Another guy I went to Grimson was Prince Brown. He also went. He was a receiver that one year. They kind of moved him, moved him toward defensive back, but gosh, I kind of lost him too. I said, boy, Northwest had those two guys. Well, Northwest is not bad like they are. They're looking pretty good. And that Lange guy, the defense got in front. It's up a lot of the Southwest. And Austin Jackson, he was here last week, very good defenders. They've got some good players. Northwest is going to be favored going in, but Western's got to put up a huge fight and try to be in that game in the fourth quarter. Try to win it in the fourth and hope they still got all that stamina if they need to win it. So should be some fun out there. You'll be there?
I think so. That's where I'll be, and We're talking about a David versus Goliath matchup. Northwest, they've been in second place in the Metro 4A the last 2 years. Western has been toward the bottom for many years. But, can hope prevail, or is Northwest, like you said, are they just too much, for the Hornets here?
Like we tell them all the time, you got to get off to a good start in the game. You can't let the other team get any advantage over you early. They get
And
advantage early,
also,
it's gonna hurt you.
Northwest cannot look ahead to Grimsley. You heard it.
Week?
You heard it. They play Grimsley next week. If they do not think ahead to Grimsley, because Western, if I tell you, don't think ahead, because Western is a better football team than they've been in recent memory. They're a better football team.
That running game is tough, and that passing game better be in the background, too. Ragsdale, 2-1 at Northern Guilford, 3-0. The Nighthawks and Jackson Kemp and Chance Cruz and all those guys have come together, playing good football. They're off to a very good start. Ragsdale, 2-1, much improved over the previous years, doing a lot better. Boy, Coach Johnny Boykin, one of my best friends. I tell you, Coach should come in. Stevenson's done a good job with him, so I hope Coach Boykin's doing good at Clinton. But for Ragsdale, much improved. This could be a battle at Johnny Roscoe Stadium here, too.
I think this is an intriguing matchup here. Ragsdale took a tough one to Oak Grove the previous week, but I want to bring in a little bit of a caveat here that I think Ragsdale does have a better defense than I think what they showed on that particular night. And I also want to add that they do have an extra week to prepare. And Stevenson, I do think he is going to have those kids prepared. Northern, on the other hand, Westburg is going to have a difficult offense for other teams to prepare for. When I say that, they have a bunch of zone read packages for Jackson Kemp, who has emerged this year. Reggie King is an explosive wide receiver. And when I covered Ragsdale against Glenn, they got bit a couple times on some play fakes and some perimeter plays. So I think, that could play into Northern's hands. We'll see if Ragsdale adjusts to that. Also factor in that Northern is not afraid to run the ball between the tackles either. So
Dwight Hall and the other running back,
Lassiter,
Akers. Yeah, Akers is back there too. Yeah. Dwight Hall kind of changed the thing. Dwight Hall, Andrews, Keene, Jones, Williams, and Lassiter. He stretched it out a little bit, kind of extended that name with a hyphenation there. It's kind of interesting. A lot of guys do, when they get a little bit further along in the trail, they kind of add that little more prestigious name.
And he mentioned Green Acres. It's spelled different, but he did mention Green Acres.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, because this is a good combination for Acres, Amari Acres. Green Acres, I love that show. Magnanimous, Mr. Kimmel said last night. How about Grimsley, 3-0 at Southeast, 2-1. Another key game because Grimsley's defending champs, Metro 4. How many games they lost in the conference the past 3 or 4 years? Not many at all. So they go to Southeast. Southeast got their hands full. But if I'm Southeast, I'm glad I'm at home because they got to come to me. I'm going to be prepared for that game with Southeast. I'm going to say, defense, hate to say it, guys, it's on you. Get ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I think one of the things that just kind of immediately comes to my mind is the closest comparison you can sort of give, even though it is a different football team. They played Dudley tough for about
quarter.
What would you say, the bulk of the first half?
Yeah, because it's right before the first half. Yeah.
Legitimately,
they actually went down a yard and a half away
legitimately.
from the end zone. Would have been a one-touchdown game at halftime.
The thing you got to tell them is you're going to make mistakes. The thing about it is you cannot let that one mistake stockpile the way it did against Dudley, where they threw the pick, it got returned back. Next thing you know, Blackwell's in the end zone, and next thing you know, a tight game becomes a blowout. I think that's one of the first things, as you say, if you're Southeast, you can't let that one mistake or that one play get in your head against a team like Grimsley. And the other thing for Grimsley, I know they've had their way against Southeast recently. So for them, you got to come in with a business trip mentality, and you can't, gloss over them, because Southeast is a better football team than they've been. So I think for Grimsley, you don't look past them. For Southeast, you can't let that big mistake get in the way.
And the big thing, too, there, you think about Southeast and you tackle a guy, you make sure you go ahead and get him down. If you hit that guy, hopefully some help will get there. When you tackle him, get into the ground. Don't give him the extra yards.
Because Mitchell Summers might take more than one.
I would think so, too. Yeah, I'm asking him tonight, how do you prepare for these teams if you're Mitchell Summers? Hopefully he shows up. How do you prepare for these teams when everybody's gunning for you? You know, every week you go in, they're trying to stop you. They're preparing for you. You're the guy they're preparing for, and they're trying to take you down. I mean, that's got to get in your head a little bit. When you're public enemy number one. They're coming after you. You know, that's something to think about.
So.
If I were in his shoes, I'm just thinking, gosh, all I want to see those lines. I want to see white lines. Keep seeing white lines. Cross those lines and keep running.
Speaking of lines, one of my favorite matchups this week, from a one-on-one, if you people like a one-on-one type, you know, looks or whatever, Bryce Davis, outside linebacker coming off the edge, and left tackle Micah Martin from Southeast. Now Micah Martin, he's emerged on the recruiting trail. He's got some Division I looks. On Friday, he'll be tested by the best edge rusher, edge defender in this area, in Bryce Davis. So this, if the college recruiters want to see just how good he is, Friday night, put a little circle around it, find the left tackle on your screen,
right,
and look to see where Bryce Davis is. Now Davis is going to rotate because of strong and weak tendencies. He's going to be on one side of the line on some plays and one the other. But when those two guys are together, put a little circle on that film and watch it.
Should be fun to watch, like you say. And if I'm Micah Martin, I got to find some way to get under his pads at some time, get those arms and pads, be able to find my lever there, and be able to steer him right or left, and be able to, you know, eventually just get him out of the play long enough so the ball, so you can get him out of there for a while so the ball can make a move, get upfield.
Now he's long. He's about 6'5", 290.
That's Micah Martin.
He's a big old boy at that left tackle spot. So he is long. Of course, Bryce Davis is too. I really want to see that hand fight action.
Good action there. Good games we've talked about already. Some other good games too. Before we get out of here tonight, let's also touch on Will Perry stepping down as the basketball coach, becoming the AD at Southern Guilford. Jeff Carter steps away as the AD, and Will Perry going to be the AD there now at Southern. Going to need a new basketball coach. Talk about Will Perry taking that job. What that means to the Southern Guilford athletic program now.
I think it's very interesting. I mean, they loved him as a basketball coach. Just for my, you know, for the transparency for the audience here, I don't actually have official word on, you know, what led to Jeff Carter, you know, no longer being in that position. You know, I hope it's not for, you know, anything serious. I hope it was his choice and not some kind of other outside circumstance. You know, but I think they are high on Will Perry in that community, and I think he does bring enthusiasm. He's had a broad impact on the athletic department, even just as a basketball coach. And so I think that they like the move. Like I said, I don't know for sure the reasoning in terms of Jeff Carter, who's been there for several years.
Yeah.
I know he was a baseball coach before that, so he's really been there for a long time in general. But
you had some good comments
see what
too
happens
from Jamias Ferrer, former player, talked about it some. His comments were good.
it was interesting what he said. In a way, I didn't see it coming fully, but it almost made it sound like this has been in talks for some time almost, the way he described it to me, as if, you know, he and Perry had discussions about this. So it sounds like they kept it under wraps for a pretty good amount of time.
We're about a month into school now, too, about a month into the school year.
Which is kind of interesting
I wonder
as
if Jeff
well.
is going to stay there on staff and work a little longer and then finish up and do some other stuff while he's there.
That is kind of interesting, the timing of it. It's not, you know, before the school year. It's not after a semester. It's,
Right.
you know, in the middle of a semester here. So that was interesting, which is also why I hope it's not some kind of, you know, outside circumstance that we're not aware
Well,
of.
again, you'll be at Western Guilford tomorrow for the Hornets and the Northwest Guilford Vikings. You'll be at that Western Guilford game. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing you out there. And we will see you then. You've been with us again this week. We've got a former Western Guilford running back going to be with us next, John Blust, House of Representatives, one of our state representatives in the House. And He's also a former Western Guilford running back. He scored the first touchdown ever in that Western Guilford Stadium when it first opened up over there. He's got that first TD there. He's got a lot of Western Guilford football history, a lot of sports history. And we're going to say, Bryant Roche, excellent job again today on the program. Good to have you on board. We'll do it again soon, hopefully next week. It's that soon. And we'll see you tomorrow night at Western Guilford.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Durham.
Keep up the good work. And again, thanks for the insight. And it was, again, a magnanimous event tonight, without a doubt. We'll be back soon. Take a break. Coming right back.